And I'll start with the roll call of attendees. And I'm just going to list off TTAC members representing towns. And, you know, we do have other guests such as commissioners, our special guest Stephanie Cronin today. So from Amherst, Natasha Kuiper and Eric Hahn. And if I miss somebody, just let me know as I go through your community. Brookline, Tad Putney is here. And Hudson, Caleb Cheng is filling in. Litchfield, Troy Brown. Langborough, Mark Chamberlain. Mason is represented by Cassie Mullen. Merrimack, Don Tumala is here. Milford, Lincoln Daly present. From Nashua, we have Julie Chismis, Pete Kohami, and Wayne Husband. Pelham, Jeff Gowan and Jennifer Beauregard. Wilton, Paul Branscombe. NTS, Camille Patterson and Sean Savage. DES, Tim White. I haven't seen anybody arrive from NHDOT. Oh, Linda's here, okay.
Yep, I just signed on.
Just signed on, gotcha. Okay, and Federal Highway, Lee Levine is here. And several of us from NRPC and other guests. So welcome, and we will start off with the minutes of March 10th it was. So correct us if there were errors or omissions. At this time, we'll be happy to correct them. So apparently there was no problem with them. So I will ask if anybody needs to abstain or not vote in favor of the minutes, let me know.
I will abstain, Greg. This is Linda.
Okay, we've got you on that. Anybody else who cannot bring themselves to vote for the minutes? Okay, then we'll declare the minutes to be approved with one abstention. And we'll move on to our regular business. So the first item is, as you are aware, we've been working on an interregional transit study, which follows up on the first Nashua transit expansion study, where we looked at alternatives of expanding beyond Nashua's borders. And in the present interregional study, we're actually looking at various transit alternatives to Massachusetts. And we've talked about a couple of the ridership estimates that were conducted for a shuttle down to UMass Lowell and a shuttle to Lowell Station that might be an intermediate service before a passenger rail extension to Nashua occurs. And we're looking at a couple of others that we'll talk about those another day. But Caleb Cheng is going to lead off and talk about some of the work he's been doing, and then he will introduce our guest speaker, Stephanie Cronin, who's the Executive Director of the Middlesex 3 Transportation Management Association. So take it away, Caleb.
Thanks, Greg. So let me share my presentation. It's more of a, I don't know which, let's see, which screen are everyone seeing?
Yeah, you gotta change.
I gotta change? All right. Or I can just leave it as in the slide mode. Okay. I'll just do this. So can everyone see this well?
I just see.
Oh. Okay, great. So just an introduction, just giving the background. I know Greg said that the details can be saved for another day, but we can still give you a snapshot of where we are and what we'll be looking at. So the interregional transit expansion study is we're looking beyond the Nashua region and seeing what opportunities, particularly south of the state line, lies, and is funded by the FTA Section 5305E grant for this fiscal year. So we're trying to wrap it up by end of June. By end of June. So the benefits of having transit connections, particularly to major employees center, is well known. I'm sure everyone here is familiar with that as well. So some issues identified are and opportunities that this transit service can help with traffic congestion, system efficiency. System efficiency refers to both highway systems and also existing transit system that might be better served by connecting this gap between the system that across the state line. Economic development opportunities and opportunities to improve environment and also social equity by providing access to those who might not have a vehicle, and also to additional housing and employment opportunities. The routes that we are studying right now, as Greg mentioned, includes like the from National Center to the 4 destinations shown on the slide, and that will go hand in hand with what we're going to present from Stephanie on some possible partnership with the Middlesex Free Coalitions. Before I get there, I also want to point out that through the study, we have identified support from various different regional plans and studies by NRPC, NIMCOG, the Boston MPO, and also Middlesex Free Coalition, and as well as a survey that we conduct with UMass Lowell for their affiliates living in Nashua region, that this potential shuttle services can provide better connectivity and commuting opportunities. A central part of this study is the operational analysis, so that will include regulations that these services might face as barriers, funding, and operation models. So a few of the operation models we'll explore include expanding the existing transit service, whether it's NTS on the Nashua region or the LRTA in the Lowell region. We can also choose to partner with the Middlesex Free Coalition's Transportation Management Agency, also known as TMA, or form our own TMA based in the Nashua region. And also we'll certainly as due diligence to check the commercial operator options as well. So with this context in mind, move to the next slide. Today we want to just give everyone a better understanding of what TMA is, and great example that Middlesex Free Coalitions have formed south of the state border, and including shuttle services they already provide to their members, and also in general, what Middlesex Free Coalition does in addition to transportation into promoting the economic growth and also the transportation issues that is in the northern Middlesex County area along the Route 3 corridor. And also that even if we might not partner with Middlesex Free in the future, they will still provide a great information and I guess lesson learned from if we are to form our own TMA. So well, with that said, I will turn it over to Stephanie Cronin. I have the opportunity to work with her while I was working with at UMass Lowell priorly, and she is a great partner in our transportation plan that we did in UMass Lowell, and I look forward to opportunity ahead if Nashua region will partner with Middlesex Free in the future. So Stephanie Cronin, the Executive Director of Middlesex Free Coalition.
Thanks, Caleb. This is an exciting conversation because what you're talking about with the destinations and all the discussions, we've had those same discussions on our end as well too. So I'm excited, you know, whether you partner with us or not. I hope you continue to partner with us in one form or another, because we're going through the same things on the other side of the border that you're going through as well too. If I could, is it okay if I share my screen as well too? I've got a bit of a presentation. I just want to get everybody on the same page as far as who we are and what we've been doing. So first of all, thank you for inviting me here this afternoon. I'm Stephanie Cronin. I'm the Executive Director of the Middlesex 3 Coalition, as well as the Middlesex 3 TMA. Can you guys hear me okay? Sound?
Yep.
Good, okay. And so in terms of who we are, the Middlesex 3 Coalition is a public-private partnership, a regional economic development organization incorporated in 2012. We include 10 municipalities along the Route 3 corridor, hence the name Middlesex 3. And we also include about 150 members and partners working together to address the business development concerns that are difficult for one community or one company to address on their own. Our partners will include Mass Office of Business Development, Mass Hire, Hanscom Air Force, NEMCOG, MAPC, same groups that you guys are talking with too, I'm sure. Anyway, we work to address those business development concerns that are difficult for one community or company to address. Transportation was by far the biggest concern pre-COVID, and it was all a workforce development issue. How to get your workers to work was really the bottom line. So it was workforce development and transportation. Since COVID, other issues like infrastructure, housing have risen in terms of the need to focus on them, but transportation certainly is a big issue for us. Just to let you know, we also do other types of work in terms of our membership. We have different events where we let people know what's happening in the different communities and companies, and we bring in speakers, whether it's our congressional speakers and such, just FYI. But we also have subcommittees on transportation, workforce development, infrastructure, and economic development. And the reason I'm mentioning this is one, our economic development subcommittees, those really we started since COVID. It's a way for us to bring our municipalities together to hear what's going on with whether it's our restaurants, our retailers, grants, opportunities. We bring our chambers together as well too. And I mentioned it because the city of Nashua, Tim Cummings, he often will join these conversations as well too. So the idea of working and partnering with New Hampshire is certainly something that we like to do. It just makes sense. Our transportation subcommittee, that's really how our TMA was formed, was through our transportation subcommittee. Right now, we really have a working group with the subcommittee where we're looking at how those MBTA service cuts are impacting the region and how we can respond to make certain that our resources are used more wisely. So yeah, we had a bunch of stakeholder meetings. I'm sure you guys have gone through the same type of thing where, you know, none of this stuff is new. Public transportation to the suburbs is limited. Public transportation doesn't respond as quickly to the employment needs. We're in between two RTAs, so it's confusing for users, and obviously traffic is still an issue. So we started the TMA. And our TMA offers everything that a normal TMA would offer in terms of ride matching, emergency ride home programs. Nobody's going to leave their car behind if they don't know that they can get home in case there's an emergency. So that we do that. We partner with Lyft, and there's a code that our users can just call and get a Lyft if they need to get home in case of an emergency. We have other things like promoting biking to work and stuff like that, which is nice. I say it's not going to solve our transportation problems, but it helps to change the mindset to let people know that there are other ways to get places other than jumping in your car. But by far the reason people join our TMA is for the shuttle. And these are a couple of our companies. I actually need to update this as well too. But pre-COVID, we had 4 shuttle routes on the road. And then we actually had funding to start a 5th one as well too. And 3 out of the 4 went from Alewife or Boston to the Route 3 corridor to companies in that area. The 4th one was from Lowell down to Burlington for restaurant workers. The ones from and that was a much harder conversation to have, honestly. But the ones that went from Alewife or for Boston to the Route 3 corridor, they really served the high-tech companies, primarily the millennials. And honestly, that was a much easier sell because the companies were interested in paying for these shuttles because it helped to expand their workforce and attract more people to their positions as well too. And oh, I'm just putting this up there just to let you know, in terms of our transportation subcommittees, we have a number of transportation priorities. I can send you the details of all of this. Nothing really too surprising in terms of improving the infrastructure and such. But the reason I wanted to bring it up is number 4, increase additional park and ride facilities. And we have had conversations, I believe it was with your office and the city of Nashua, where we know pre-COVID, of course, Kingsborough was at capacity with their park and rides. I'm told that Nashua, the ones that are on the highway, were as well too. And how can we improve that? I know that's not what today's conversation is about, but just in terms of transportation projects, this is kind of a relatively easy one as well too. So I just wanted to put that onto your agenda as well too, in terms of additional work with park and ride facilities in the future. We would be all for that. I'm not going to go through all of this, but we did do a community compact where we looked at ways that we can improve our transportation connections along the Route 3 corridor. And I can, again, send you the whole report if you're interested. But it does talk about park and rides and increasing the shuttle service and establishing mobility hubs, where we're working with our communities to do more of the mobility hubs to make it easier for people to make connections as well too. And also we're working with our communities to incorporate more permitting in their regulations, so that it's a requirement for the companies that are building to join the TMA. If they're going to be coming to the area, we'd love to keep them connected as well too. So that's something that we have been working with our communities on as well. And in terms of our transportation working group, as I said, we're looking at the MBTA connections as well too. And we have, I think I said all this stuff, but restaurant shuttle was something that we tried, and we're looking to expand some of our other resources as well too. I'm going to stop my share though, but Caleb and I talked earlier, and a few other things that I didn't fit into my presentation. I just want to I just want to mention as well too, is in terms of how we started through a DEP mitigation funding. There was a problem. One of our companies had a problem. So anyway, we received funding, $100,000, which we used for the first 5 companies to step forward to join our shuttle. It was about 50% of what they would pay to join the shuttle. So about $40,000 per company. So we provided $20,000 for each company for the first year. And I mentioned this too, partly because I think it's critical for anything that you start. It has to be at least for a year. Otherwise, you're just not going to, it's not fair. It takes about a year to get people's mindsets changing. And if it's less than that, it's not going to work. So that would be one thought. And also, in terms of what you guys mentioned of some of your destinations, we've had conversations with our employers as well too. I've got one in Billerica that they would love to have a shuttle that goes from Nashua down to Billerica. I know we've talked with UMass Lowell, we've talked with Leahy, Middlesex Community, a lot of the companies in our region. They certainly do want to be partnering as well too. And I know we've also talked with John Flatley. I know that he had a shuttle at one point too. He would be an excellent partner for this as well too. But again, you need to have a year to do that. And you need to be promoting it as well. And that's part of the role of the coalition, is to be promoting it because people love their cars. And also the other issue, the other item that we've been looking at is bus rapid transit along Route 3. It's not an easy issue. None of these are easy issues. But Route 3 was made for made for an additional lane. So we have talked about, is there a way that we can do that? And yeah, so that's a conversation we're having as well too. Anyway, I've rambled enough. I'd be happy to answer any questions or engage, or Caleb, I don't know what you'd like.
If I could lead off, I would just like to sort of follow up on some of the things that you said. So we have been focusing on the demand for a shuttle in the Bedford, Billerica area. So we're looking at MITRE, iRobot, Leahy. So essentially coming down Middlesex Turnpike and then over on Burlington Mall Road and then back again. So we do have the job numbers, the OD patterns. We do this at the census tract level. And then in the MITRE area, we actually looked at just a portion of that census tract because the shuttle would only serve a small part, but most of the others would be full census tracts served more or less, or at least the vast majority. So you mentioned some companies. I'm wondering if we could get names of companies that actually have expressed interest to you, and maybe we could do some additional follow-up. And I don't know if we're looking at the companies you may be talking about further up north in Billerica, because originally I looked at a shuttle that would begin there and come all the way down Middlesex Turnpike, and I realized, well, where you're making stops at a number of companies, it's just not competitive anymore. Whereas perhaps we'd be looking at 2 shuttles, a shorter shuttle and back, and then one that comes further down, gets off US 3, forget the exit number, that gets at 62.
They've changed them too.
And right at the, where the MITRE is, get off. So that'd be like the southern shuttle. That's the one we focused on, but maybe we should also be looking at something further to the north. So any information you have about, company has talked to you about, they wish there were a national shuttle, we'd sure like to get that information. And, we can get the employment numbers, out of the census data for that. So that was.
Can I jump in as well too, just to respond to that? So in MITRE and Millipore, those are 2 of our, MITRE actually helped us start the shuttle as well too. So they're a great partner. I'd also throw in Hanscom Air Force. I know they have a number of employees that come from New Hampshire down, and they do a lot with transportation as well too. And I know micro shuttles, those are really the big the rage now, because 45 minutes is what I'm told. Nobody wants to be on a shuttle more than 45 minutes. So if you make 2, 3, 4 stops, that's eating up a lot of your time too. So it is, you don't want large shuttles that take that have a lot of stops as well too, for this type of a shuttle at least.
Oh, Greg,
Just seemed that we'd have to serve a number of companies along a route in order to, be able to get enough riders. That's the way it looked to me, but I could be wrong. Certainly, if there were an individual company, if MITRE said we'd love to have a micro shuttle, yeah, we could do that. Then that would make sense, perhaps. But when you talk about micro shuttles, then is that a substitute for a van pool? I'm not sure why you wouldn't just go with a van pool.
I don't know. That seems to be what people are calling it now. But van pools, they used to be, you probably know more about this than I do. There used to be tax credits so that you could buy a van at a lower rate. But that went away. My understanding is that went away. We've never set up a van pool, and that's part of the reason why, is that the subsidy is not there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. I do know this about van pools. So when I worked at CTPS in Boston, my manager previously in the mid 1980s, he was actually a van pool driver to CTPS. And so, they had a number of people in it. Maybe there were other people in the transportation building take it as well. But he said that, through attrition over time, that, just became harder to manage the van pool. So if you're looking at a van pool or micro shuttle that's more focused on a single employer or a couple of employers, then you're depending on them being able to replenish, the riders, because especially at some of these tech places, I think the talent moves on pretty quickly from one to the next, and hard to maintain them. That would be what I would suspect. So that's why what we have looked at, and it's easier to do ridership estimation where you have a route that, has a solid base of employment. And then what we do in the case of this employer route, there's the only alternative is the auto. There's no other transit option. So we're looking at comparative impedances, which are just the addition of travel times and costs of travel for competing modes. In this case, it's just the auto and the shuttle bus. And that's how we develop a mode split and apply it to the journey to work numbers that we have.
So one other thing I'll throw out there as well too, and I mentioned this to Caleb when we spoke, is we work with an organization. So our role is really to bring the companies together so that they can share the costs with these shuttles because they're not cheap. But we contract out with the actual shuttle provider. And Caleb, I think you met with them, and they have a couple hundred shuttles with different sizes, which it's nice because then you start out with a small vehicle and you grow as the program grows as well too, which helps with cost because different licenses and stuff such too. But one reason I mentioned it is they do the work in terms of the dispatch and such, but they also have the insurance, the liability insurance, and that's a big issue for our businesses as well too. And God forbid something happens, they don't want to be liable, we don't want to be liable. It's the transportation company that has the liability insurance. So that was big for us. I don't know how that would impact you guys.
Yeah, that'd be a consideration.
Yeah, I think it's a steep learning curve to be a transit operator. I think Greg, we can certainly continue discussion internally as well, but I want to ask whether the audience have any question regarding just Middlesex 3, the study that we're doing, or maybe any other question that pertains to your community.
Hi, this is Julie from Nashua. Stephanie, we spoke about just over a year ago. I think Tim and Jay and several of us got together to discuss, opportunities to collaborate on and solving transportation issues between our two regions. So I really appreciate you coming today and speaking with us, and look forward to being part of a continued discussion. So, if there's a possibility to invite the city of Nashua to the table, please do.
Thank you, Julie. I remember it was probably 2 years ago at this point.
Oh, geez,
right?
was it? Oh.
Yeah. But yeah, good seeing you. Thank you. And Caleb, if you want to give my email address, if anybody wants to connect with me afterwards, I'd be happy to answer any questions as well too.
Okay.
But yeah, we certainly we welcome the opportunity to do more with New Hampshire as well. It just makes sense for us.
Correct, and I think this study is very interesting because, as you can see, there is it's kind of an imaginary border for transportation in a sense, since vehicles and commerce pass through the state border every day. I'm sure once we work through the regulatory and political, I guess, barriers, there will be opportunities.
And I agree, and I always have the imaginary borders in my area as well too. But the one thing that's not imaginary is the funding, and that was always the hard thing, is because the funding, how do you get the funding to follow the bus and not stay within that area as well too? And so that's that's a federal thing as well too, right? So how do you pay for it when it goes between the different RTAs?
Correct. And I think just information for everyone. I mean, certainly the private part, we mentioned a lot of interested employers will be an important consideration for funding. I think the FTA funds are limited in both regions, so that could be a big challenge. But we do also have consider the CMAQ funding too, if that can help to pilot the program. So this will be a later discussion, and that will be part of the study. And I think when we conclude the study, Greg will certainly bring us back and update everyone.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your time. I'll jump off unless you want me to answer any questions or
Last call for questions.
Okay. Well, again,
Okay,
thank you
thanks,
everyone
Stephanie.
for your time. Have a good day.
Great having you here.
Same here. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So back to you, Greg.
Okay, so now it is high noon for the Transportation Alternatives Program, and Matt is going to start the process of presentations.
Thanks, Greg. So I'm going to share my screen, obviously, and I also would draw your attention to attachment number 2 in your agenda packet. The next several slides kind of summarize that attachment 2. So either way, so yeah, this is the next step in the TAP funding process. So NRPC, the NRPC communities that submitted applications for funding are Amherst, Litchfield, Merrimack, Nashua, Pelham, and Wilton. And so they're going to, so the idea, and I know that in the memo I mentioned that what's happening today is that TAP applicants are going to present project information. Their presentations are going to proceed alphabetically with a 10-minute limit on presentations. TTAC members are going to rank projects using the link provided in the chat box that's in there right now. Hopefully that works for everyone. It's at the top of the chat box. So that's basically a link to a survey where you can click on the town, the community, or the agency that you're representing, and then the second question is just asks you to rank the project. So you're gonna rank the projects based on the information you get from the presentations, and also in that memo I had sent a link to the applications. So there was information in there. So I want to emphasize it's 1 vote per community or agency, and you do have to, again, you have to be a TTAC member. And if if you need to collaborate with your other TTAC partner, you can do that offline if you could do. But if you could do your rankings by the end of business today, I think that makes sense. And then a reminder that the TTAC rankings end up being 10% of the regional score. So, so just some additional steps as a reminder. There is a project scoring committee. They're going to finalize their scoring after this meeting and submit those scores to NRPC staff. That subcommittee is Tad Putney from Brookline, Lincoln Daly from Milford, and Mark Chamberlain from Lineborough. They've had, the application information for a bit of time now, and they were asked to, independently score these projects based on the available information, and they're here today. And so they're going to, potentially they'll adjust their scores based on any additional information they get today. And so the step after that is NRPC staff will compile those subcommittee scores, incorporate the TTAC rankings, and then tally a final weighted score. And then those final scores and rankings will be reviewed and agreed upon by the subcommittee. So the point of that, and again, just as a reminder, this is the process we've used for the last couple rounds. But the reason they will make sure I'll provide the final rankings and scores to the subcommittee, and just to make sure there's no outliers or nothing crazy, and it all makes sense to that subcommittee, then we'll finalize the rankings and the scores. So then the next step is the NRPC Executive Committee will review, endorse the rankings at its April meeting, which is next week. Final rankings will be submitted to DOT, and at that time we'll notify the applicants of the regional rankings, and then DOT will incorporate the regional rankings into their scoring process. And then, just as a reminder, in May, DOT will score and rank the projects. In June, there'll be a final approved list. And then August and October, agreements with the communities will be negotiated. And then next January, the funding becomes available. And so again, here are the applications that you're going to be hearing about. Amherst pedestrian bikeway, Litchfield extension of a sidewalk along Pinecrest Road, Merrimack is a sidewalk on DW Highway, Nashua is a shared use path on Spruce Street, and Pelham and Wilton are both proposing pedestrian bridges. And again, I thought, you know, we do these alphabetically, and which means Amherst would be up first. I'm going to stop sharing, and I think there are several folks from Amherst, and I'm just going to turn it over to them, whoever wants to share their screen, and we'll go from there. So, and I wanted to ask, does everybody understand the process? Certainly questions are welcomed. All right, hearing none. Amherst is up.
Well, all right. So hello, everybody. My name is Chris Buchanan. I'm the chairman of the Amherst Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'm one of a few presenters today. I also have Eric Hahn, the Director of Public Works in town, and Dr. George Bauer, a safety and human factors expert for today's presentation. Don't worry about the PowerPoint. It's really just a couple of pictures. We're not going to bore you to death. And we're also going to try to split up 10 minutes 3 ways, which is pretty short. So just a little bit of detail about the project. The Amherst pedestrian bikeway is hardly something new. It's a concept that's been around. It was first started in the 1980s, but really developed in 2001. And the principles of the project are to develop 2 districts in town with enhanced mobility and safety for pedestrians and bicyclists. Here you'll see the Village District, which is the National Historic District that we have in Amherst. It's also the site of 2 schools in town. And then down here we have the School Campus District, which is where the other 2 schools are in town. So those are the 2 districts. And then you'll also see these branches which go out in different directions. That's part of the bikeway concept, to develop 2 districts and then interconnect them as a sort of hub, a backbone, if you will, of multimodal transportation throughout the town and actually into other towns. As you'll see, we branch here. Part of the concept is to directly connect to the Milford Oval. One last detail about this map is that you'll see that there are different colors displayed. The green segments are either existing or funded projects. This line here, for example, is Amherst Street, which is part of a 2020 initiative to raise funds through municipal taxation. The voters voted to support that, and construction will be beginning in the next several weeks. It's 2 miles of infrastructure going to Milford. Some of these yellow segments are not part of this current TAP application, but our future plans. And this green one, for example, is part of the NHDOT 10-year plan for 2026. It's also part of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, and so is much of this. In fact, 75% of the project is part of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan, these connections. I'll focus in real quick on the 2 districts here. Here's the village again. What we're really trying to do here is underscore 2 principles. One of them is to establish those safer and better ways to walk and bike around the town in these 2 districts with the connections as well, but also to utilize a truly cost-effective way to do this. We are specifically trying to incorporate the enhancement of facilities with timing it with upcoming road construction. So our math so far has indicated that we can save up to 60% per linear foot on the cost of timing these sorts of facilities with scheduled road construction. So that is why we have selected many of the routes that we have. It's also part of the principle of that Amherst Street side path that I indicated. Going down to the south here, here's the school district area, and you'll see Souhegan High School and Amherst Middle School. Just a couple of quick details about it. This is no new concept. That article there in the top left started in 1986. It was already a hot topic in town. In 2001, town of Amherst hired CLD Engineering to engineer this project. And since then, you can see it's still remained an issue there. Just a couple of years ago, some kids still walking on the streets to school. One last detail about those various plans is that this concept has repeatedly come up in these plans, starting in 2001 with the CLD engineering plan, but it was also as part of the NRPC's 2006 town systems preservation study, part of our bike ped plan, etc. I don't need to list them all, but in the end, it was further reinforced by our 2019 multimodal master plan, which set out a vision for this sort of thing and was adopted by the Board of Selectmen in 2019. So I guess a real quick last note here is that the real goal is to have connectivity and to roll these things out when it's cost effective. A lot of this construction is scheduled to occur with or without our TAP award, just conventional road construction. And the TAP application would enhance the scheduled road construction by adding multimodal facilities within the town's right of way. So that's a little bit about the concept. I would then hand things over to DPW Director Hahn, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Right. Well, good afternoon. I'm Eric, the DPW Director at Amherst. And I have to tell you, for this TAP grant application and for most of the other aspects of this project and others, I'm in the best possible position. I feel so good as the DPW Director, right? So we have the support from the Board of Selectmen, very active support from the Board of Selectmen. Their main criteria seems to be let us go somewhere, right? People don't want to just go in loops around, right? So this first part, which is going to happen regardless of this TAP application or award, will be to connect the Amherst Village Center to the Milford Town Line and then into the Milford Oval, right? And they're asking me not to do this on existing funds, right? So last year, the residents supported and really by a significant majority passed a $287,000 warrant article to help build this side path this year. And it is being done concurrently with the reconstruction of Amherst Street itself. This will provide the backbone that all of the other components that are part of the TAP grant application will support, right? But we will be able to connect to an existing facility that we are constructing starting basically next week. We're having the pre-construction meeting on Friday, and tomorrow we're having an informational Zoom meeting for the people in Amherst. The feasibility is of this project. We have willing financial support has been demonstrated by the $287,000 warrant article. There's a warrant article for $75,000 that'll be voted on in June. And if we're awarded the TAP grant, we'll bring forth to the Board of Selectmen a warrant article for their consideration for the gross appropriation, right? So we can match the grant award. There will be funds available in budget funds from the DPW for portions of the work for this application. We'll make it so that it's coincidental with other road construction, and so I think there's a real heightened possibility for success with or without the TAP grant, although the TAP grant will provide like a rapid expansion of the network, right? So that people see the positives of making our streets shared streets, not just exclusively for cars. Just to touch on some of the other things, I'm sorry. Our plan is to, build according to the stated desire, going somewhere, right? In this case, starting within the next couple of weeks, we're going to connect to town centers, and people really have expressed the desire for transportation alternatives, right? We connect two towns. We're giving people the opportunity to linger in those towns, right? If you're walking or biking somewhere, you tend to stay there, right? So it invites more interaction between the towns. It gives people a place to go, right? And I know I'm cutting it short on time. George, do you want to come in with the safety aspects of it?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Is my audio okay?
Yes.
Everybody picking that up? Okay, great. So my name is George Bauer. Apologize, I'm on my phone because I'm traveling today. But I wanted to spend just a couple minutes here talking about the safety elements of this, because if you look at what normally happens with road construction, we build roads for cars. And what the TAP grant enables us to do is to take a series of roads and projects in Amherst, and in addition to rebuild those roads, we get to add features that will significantly enhance the safety of other users. People ask me about this all the time, and I say, you know, if you're riding a bike or you're walking or running on the road, you're a resident of that town, you pay the same taxes as the person who drives on that road, you just don't get the same benefits. And so we are looking at a TAP grant that will substantially change the way that our roads look, the way that they function, and enable non-vehicular users to utilize them and to have a level of safety that's really unparalleled. My role as a human factors expert is to look at how do people behave in a particular environment. I've done that a lot in the traffic environment. And one of the things we know is that if we can change the perception of drivers, what they see, what they feel, we can change their behavior. And a real good example of that is that if you have a rough road surface, people just normally slow down. It was one of the benefits of having cobblestone roads, which we obviously have gotten away from. So we are incorporating techniques and design elements that are proven. They've been used substantially or significantly in Europe and elsewhere in this country. And the major pieces is that we're taking what are historic roads in Amherst, ones that started off as paths, became two-ride roads, and then ultimately became paved and designed for efficient vehicle flow, intend to come back and modify them, change the way that people drive on that road so that we create a safe space for the other roadway users. Part of my insistence as we look at this is not only do we have facilities that are safe for pedestrians of all ages, bicyclists, but that we also have ones that are safe for people who have limits to their mobility, anyone who has a particular handicap, so that they also have an opportunity to be able to use roadways like this. If I have another 45 seconds here, what I'd like to do is give you an example of the kind of things that we do in human factors as we look at roadways and how do we change people's perception of them. Oftentimes, if I'm speaking to a group, I will say, okay, I have a question for you to explain this. What are the three colors of a traffic signal? And I will get an answer. 99% plus people will say red, yellow, and green. And I say, well, that's nice, but 99+% of you are wrong, because if you're under the age of 65, you have probably never seen a green light. Green lights are blue. But those are the kind of elements that we have to be able to work with in terms of driver behavior, change the way you think, change the way that they see things, and improve the overall safety in the system. Chris, I'll turn that back over to you.
Well, that's it. Those are the three of us giving this presentation. I don't think we're supposed to take questions or anything like that, but Matt, we're handing it back.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and George and Eric. Does anybody have a question or two about this application? All right, and if anything comes up, there'll be time at the end too as well. So
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. So alphabetically, the next community up is Litchfield. And Troy, do you want me to open up the presentation for you, or?
Yeah, if you could do that for me, I'd appreciate it.
All right, I'm going to do that. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm assuming people see this, and I will go ahead and let's see if this will work. So there you go. And I will move it forward for you. Troy, is that the idea?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you once again for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to present. I'll be the only presenter today. Again, my name's Troy Brown, the town administrator for Litchfield. So we have our Pinecrest Road Sidewalk Extension project. We're very excited about it. This project has been discussed in town for many years. If you want to go to the next slide, Matt, talk about the project goals. Really, there's 3 goals for this project, and the first and foremost one is to fill the gap that we have in our existing pedestrian sidewalk system. So we have a multi-purpose bike path that runs about 6 miles long, the full length of Albuquerque Ave. And on Albuquerque Ave, we have our high school, we have several recreation facilities, we now have our brand new fire station, and we have our police and fire, the police and town office complex. So that bike path is used every day by residents. We have outsiders coming to our community using this as well. We have the state forest where people will come, park their car, they'll use the state forest trails, or they'll use a portion of our multi-purpose bike path. The town, way beyond my time, started realizing that they needed to connect Pinecrest, the 3A and Pinecrest, to the Albuquerque bike path. And they started that project connecting their elementary school that's located on 3A, and they started working up Pinecrest, and it terminated at the middle school. And this grant application is looking to take that point at the middle school and continue it up to the Albuquerque bike path, which is about 5,000 feet. So it's going to provide that connection to all of those municipal facilities we talked about, the state forest, and our school systems. And the next goal will be obviously that by doing this, we're going to connect all of our school systems, and it will provide them obviously with a safe passage as they use the systems to go to school, and after school go to after school sports activities which do occur at our public parks. We share a lot of our rec fields with softball, soccer, lacrosse. So it's used not only by those private athletic associations, but also used by our school system. And as I mentioned before, our multi-purpose path on Albuquerque is used by all ages of the town. We have everyone on there, from walking dogs to jogging, to training their kids on how to, on a little bike with training wheels. It's always full of people recreating from all ages, and not all just Litchfield. We have a lot of neighboring communities. Residents have learned about our bike path. They like it, and there's plenty of places to park and access it. So they come and they use it. They use it year round. We're pretty committed to maintaining our bike path and multi-purpose trail system. We do all winter maintenance. We do this fall cleanup of leaves and everything like that. So it's a great project. I don't know why it hasn't been completed to date. It just makes so much sense. But I think this opportunity right now, if we're able to receive some funding, will be exactly what the community needs to get at the next level, which would be to get it on a warrant article. So Matt, if you want to go to the next slide. I kind of probably got into this, but the message here is that this sidewalk extension will connect, provides just an incredible connection to our community. 70% of our Litchfield residents are within a 10-minute walking distance from the Albuquerque multi-purpose path. So by getting to this Albuquerque path and then safely getting all the way down to Pinecrest and the school system, you know, it just really completes the picture here in Litchfield. Go next, Matt. Project's pretty simple. I've driven down the section of Pinecrest that we're proposing to build a sidewalk several times since like January, just kept looking at it. It's like I mentioned, it's about 5,000 feet in length. We would be proposing to build a 5-foot wide sidewalk. It would have paved curving. We would add a 2-foot shoulder to Pinecrest, and that would just enhance the safety, just create some separation from the edge of pavement on Pinecrest to the curbing and the start of the sidewalk. The great thing about this project really is it's for the engineers and designing it and the contractors out there constructing it. The whole layout of this sidewalk would be within the town's right-of-way. You can clearly see that today if you were to drive your car up and down Pinecrest. It's very visual, our right-of-way. You can see that it doesn't really have an impact on the abutting neighbors, any of the landscaping. It's which is, you know, I've built a few sidewalks before in other communities, and you spend a lot of time working out final details with abutters. In this case, it's going to be pretty straightforward. No real concerns here. There's no driveways or mailboxes. They're not allowed on Pinecrest. So we're not dealing with private driveway crossings or any mailboxes that are would end up in the middle of the sidewalk or on the edge of the sidewalk. And I think maybe there's one utility pole, if that, that might be an obstacle for us. We have one culvert, which is not, you know, a wetland issue. It's just a simple cross culvert, just moving some water drainage from one side of the road to the other. We consulted with our town engineer. He put some time and effort into the design and construction costs. A very conservative estimate here. But it looks like the total cost of this project be around $812,500. And that would require a local match of $162,500. Just watching the excitement on our social media pages of residents when they heard that the selectmen and planning board were supporting this application, I do not foresee funding of our match to be an issue whatsoever. Typically, every single year, we always have one warrant article, or maybe two, but definitely one, where we'll try to accomplish one major capital expenditure. And it's usually in that range of 100 to 150,000. In this case, you know, a little bit more. We also have, and I'm sure there'll be a good discussion with the budget committee and selectmen that we have for projects like this that are tied to grants. We have utilized our unassigned fund balance. So, you know, funding becomes a little bit easier to obtain permission from the voters because we're really not raising any new taxes. So, and the selectmen, when we approached them, they were 100% committed to placing, if we're awarded the grant, that they would place this on the warrant in 2022. So it would be a warrant article. And like I said, it's, I think that this funding level, it's very doable in the town of Litchfield. So Matt, you want to go next? I think this is just a quick slide that just shows us, you know, the layout, the proposed section. So you can see in the turquoise down there, that's a little small section of existing sidewalk on the 3A at the Griffin Memorial School. It goes up to 3A, connecting to Pinecrest, and it terminates right there at the driveway to the middle school. So what you see in pink or purple is that 5,000-foot section, which this application is seeking funding for to construct. Once you get up to Albuquerque, you got 3 miles basically that goes north and 3 miles that goes south. If you want to run a half marathon, then come to Litchfield, park at one of the parking lots, and you can run the full length of it, turn around, run back to your car. You've done a half marathon. I think I talked a little bit about the public support. It's definitely supported by our planning board and selectmen. This summer, we were working on updating sections of the master plan, and we did a total update of our capital improvement plan. And this sidewalk section was all included in those plans. And we use social media a lot for input as we put together those plans. And that's where we found, a lot of excitement in our community to complete this project. So I think that's it. Pretty straightforward, simple project. It accomplishes a lot with that connection. It's just missing that connection point to really give us a complete network here in our community.
Thank you, Troy. Any questions for Troy? All right, so I think next up is Merrimack, and Dawn, I think you were going to run your presentation from your end, right?
That's correct. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Can we see the presentation?
I do.
Yay. Okay. So our project is on Daniel Webster Highway. And as the sign says, we are one town, but we're comprised of 4 villages. And the reason for that is because this is very divided. We have the Pennachuck Brook on the south with Nashua. We have the Merrimack River. The Effie Everett cuts us in half, north and south. And the Sauhegan River cuts us east and west. So we've got 4 different distinct divisions. In 2009, the town council wanted to define the town center. So they had a subcommittee and they formed, and they came up with a plan for where we wanted to consider our town center. So that's what this plan does. And then they were also charged with how to make connections between all of them. So they came up with a whole series of connections. We've been working on it as part of DPW since that time, filling in various parts, and we've obtained some different types of grants, and TAP grants for these different projects. We are doing one of the last connections down here at the Sauhegan River, connecting the entire town center up here with everything that's going on down below. This is a blow up of that area. So this is the Sauhegan River. We've got the fire station here, and Watson Park is up here. And we want to make these connections better and to be able to fill in our holes. We've also realizing that we needed to continue our progress, not just in the town center, but north and south on the Daniel Webster Highway is also in need of connections for both bike and pedestrians. So the planning board worked with NRPC and in 2019 came up with the DPW corridor bike and ped path. So we now have 2 master plans working together to be able to make our connections for the pedestrians and bikes. Our areas of work is going to be in this area right here. So we're going to actually be joining the 2, and this will be our first project of this new plan, which is really exciting to be able to do that. That plan, the new plan, is part of our master plan now. I believe it's Appendix A, and it's going to, first it identifies the gaps in the infrastructure, and then it will accommodate the future needs, needs to identify the future needs. And then it has developed a plan for the bicycle and ped infrastructure. So we are part of what we're proposing is part of both of these plans, basically. And again, our town center committee is a subcommittee of the town council. And our goal is to provide a safe and inviting access to the town residents and visitors who come into the town. And I will tell you, during COVID, we've had a lot of visitors using our paths. The scope of the work is to construct a 3,600 linear feet of sidewalk along the Daniel Webster Highway, connecting the existing segments and make it one contiguous sidewalk. And like I showed you before, the priorities are under 5 and 7 under the town plan. This project will provide access to the established sidewalk. It will make connections to important town structures like the library, the town hall, a couple of different churches, the John O'Leary Adult Community Center. It also connects a number of restaurants and drugstores, convenience centers, professional and health offices. It connects the Watson Park, which has our volleyball courts. In the winter, we make that into an ice rink. It has a pavilion and picnic tables. We've also enhanced the parking area in there. And it's also going to be the entrance to our Sauhegan River Trail project. That trail leads to the high school and also under the F.E. Everett, which is one of the few connections that we have going across the F.E. Everett. And we have an extensive trail system on the west side of the F.E. Everett. And it also provides walking distance to the Twin Bridges Park and the Kids Cove Playground. And yes, Cove is spelled properly. That's the way they spelled it. So our project runs from the Sauhegan River on the north, all the way down Daniel Webster Highway to what's called the 360 Plaza. This used to be the old Shaw's building, and in the last few years, they've renovated this, and it's just taken off in this whole area. There are small sections of sidewalk, so there's a big section of gap in here, but there's also a couple of small sections of sidewalk that exist, but we need to connect it. We may need to make that connection between all of this. This area is growing significantly in leaps and bounds. So to break the project down a little bit, this is Watson Park up here on the northeast side of the Sauhegan River. Here's our fire station. So this is all the town center as it is defined by the town center committee. There's an existing sidewalk that comes in red all the way down through. We have no connection coming across the street. So we would like to be able to have a safe access coming across the street for pedestrians. We also don't have a section of sidewalk in here, but we do have a section that starts going down south. This is also our trail system that is our 2014 TAP grant, which will connect into an existing trail system, which we'll get into a little bit later. Going further south on the Daniel Webster Highway, there is a small section of sidewalk in this area. And this section up here is now considered elderly housing. It's a project that's nearing completion. As part of that project, we made them put this section of sidewalk in so that we have a connection between these two areas here. So we will pick up the project again at East Chamberlain Street, which is what this is, and continue south. This whole area does not have any sidewalk in there. We're also very close to approving a short-term apartments in this area here. You know, people that need to come in and have a place to live for a few months, that type thing. That's his idea of this building here. He also has a storage facility in the back. And this is, again, the area where we want to construct the sidewalk, which would be on the west side of Daniel Webster Highway. And continuing southerly, there is no sidewalk in through here. Again, there's a bunch of commercial buildings, restaurants, different wide variety. This is the 360 Plaza, which has been renovated. And you can see from the photography, there's already cars that are parked there. I mean, this whole plaza has really taken off. As part, in addition to this plaza, they're proposing another 45 units up behind this plaza. So we've got more potential that's been approved. They're working on their construction financing. And then down to the south, just past this photo, we have a workforce housing that was just completed also. So we're having a number of facilities that are being brought into the area, which is going to increase our residents, which increases the people out walking. We have absolute total support of our town council. It was a 7-0 vote. This is their letter. We also have a letter from the town center committee and from the planning board. I also talked to the police chief, and he also supports our doing this project from a safety point of view, because there are accidents out on that road. Likely to succeed? It's absolutely going to succeed in one form or another. Last year, not knowing whether the TAP grant was coming or not, the town council set up to put in sidewalks into our infrastructure in a much greater detail. They want to see 5 different projects moving forward, this being one of them. And this is also the town center's one of their major goals. The bike and ped plan is shown in the 2013 master plan. And the police are concerned with the safety for the pedestrians. I mean, that's their chief main concern. In public works, we are committed to improving and providing safety, not just on our roads, but also for the trails and sidewalks, because we have a sidewalk plan where we take care of those also, along with helping the Conservation Commission with the trail system. We are ready financially. This project's been outlined in our master plan for the last 2 cycles. The project is part of the different plans. It has been included in the 21-27 capital improvement program listed under the sidewalks. Like I said, the town council really wants to promote the sidewalks in this town. Funding will be taken from our capital infrastructure, the reserve fund, and at their January 28th, 2021 meeting, they voted 7-0 to support the project. Our financial readiness, we estimate the entire project at $1.25 million, $1 million in federal, 80% match, and town match at $250,000, 20%. Under this project, we have that I know of any historical, cultural, or environmental obstacles. That's been one of our problems with our 2014 TAP grant, the Sauhegan River Trail. We've completed 2 other sidewalk projects within that area under the 2012 Transportation Enhancements Program. That was the program prior to the TAP grant. And we are finalizing the 2014, but due to historic, cultural, and environmental obstacles, every time we turn around, the state comes up with something else. It has cost us a lot of money for that project, but we're working through it, and hopefully we should be able to put it out to bid shortly. We're hoping. Potential for success. Yes, there's no doubt. This is what we want in town. Daniel Webster Highway is a class 4 highway. It's the urban compact section of highways. Some of the areas will need to have the right-of-way determined. We have plans, since this is a very busy business area, we have many of the plans already defining the right-of-way. There will need to be some other areas that need to be defined. We're going to have some temporary construction easements probably, and maybe even some permanent easements where the roadway is shifted a little bit one way or the other. So the potential for success, the feasibility, again, we have no wetlands or shoreline permits required. We are in an area where we haven't, it's already been developed. We don't have any AOT permits that would be involved. The area isn't that big. Since it's already disturbed, there are no historical impacts like Indian artifacts, like other projects. The project is anticipated to be able to proceed in a very timely fashion, and we are extremely excited to have this project because it's a very, very busy road. We have, we just want to construct the sidewalks in the area where there aren't any. Right now, pedestrians are walking in close proximity to the speeding cars. At the Sauhegan River, the pedestrians are crossing without any crosswalk. The traffic counts in this area are 16,000 cars a day with 1,400 at peak rush hours. And there have been substantial serious accidents in this area, which I will show you. So our issues are many new housing complexes are going in. We have workforce housing that has the children. We have elderly housing. We have short-term housing, and we have regular standard market rate apartments within this area. And none of this area allows for anybody with disabilities to be able to have access. So it requires an advanced skill and knowledge to cross Daniel Webster, and it's not suited for pedestrians or bicyclists. After construction, we should allow for the construction of the sidewalk. Will provide a safe condition for all pedestrians, especially the children, elderly, and disabled. They'll have safe passage with basic skills and knowledge of the traffic. So this is the fire station down here, and this is the beginning of the project. This is where Sauhegan River, we cross Sauhegan River. You can see the existing sidewalk, nice sidewalk. It's great. It's got granite curb up and away. You turn around, this is what you face. So we've got another street coming in, and this is Daniel Webster over on the right side here. So our idea would be to finish coming up, and there's a side road over here just before the Centera Bank up here. We can be able to make a safe crossing up in that area up there. Further up, this is the elderly housing is behind this white picket fence here. And this little person up in here, that's a grandmother with a granddaughter. They were up walking this area, but this is the sidewalk we had this development put in, and we have a 3-foot panel and then a 5-foot sidewalk. This area here has got another 3 residences coming in with commercial on the first floor. So the residences on the second floor, the commercial will be on the first floor. This is looking back north. There's a little small section of sidewalk that we want to connect, and down here's the bank. So we would want to connect going across the street somewhere in that area. Most of the area looks like this. So our poles are behind. If you're walking right beside the highway. This car is just going through, and none of them go 35 miles an hour, I can tell you. And looking back the other way, you've got the same conditions going up this road. We've got an intersection with major roads. There's Columbia Circle, Wright Road. They have heavy traffic, large truck traffic, because there are industrial areas on both sides of this road. This is the 360 Plaza. You can see the cars in there. It's been a great boom for the town. And there's going to be another set of residences up here behind this whole complex. In order to improve the safety, we are proposing either a raised sidewalk or a separated sidewalk. You'll see we have both in our downtown already. But that will allow for the protection of the pedestrians in one fashion or another. In conjunction with other projects, this should make the overall safety for the pedestrians much better. And it will improve the crossing at the Sauhegan River, which is a serious concern to us. This is our crash results. This was actually done from 2017. So since the 4 years since, we've had many more in this area, but every red dot was as best as we could determine the area of accidents. So we have quite a few. Stress analysis and safety. The current condition would be a DE. Daniel Webster requires an advanced level skill level to be able to cross the road. And it's not really suitable, especially for young pedestrians or elderly or disabled or bicyclists. So in the future, we anticipate with the sidewalk construction that will be at a level AB. It'll make the connections into existing sidewalks, not only on Daniel Webster, but going off of Daniel Webster. The sidewalks will be in the appropriate location. The raised sidewalks will provide safer pedestrian and keep them out of the vehicular traffic. And it'll improve the crossing. So it completes the connections. It makes connections from the residential areas into the rest of the town center area. Excuse me. There are municipal buildings are in that area, town hall, library. It also has recreation areas, the Watson Park, the Merrimack Youth Association building, and the Twin Bridges Park. It also will connect the retail establishments and professional and health officers. This is the Twin Park area, and the Kids Cove is back here. This is the Sauhegan River, so we have access to all of the trail system. And this is Watson Park. Our gazebo is here. This is all the volleyball courts, and in the winter we make that into the ice rink. We enhanced in the last couple of years, enhanced the parking in this area. And this is the existing sidewalk that comes through, and our new trail will come underneath using the old archways underneath the Sauhegan River. And this is the fire station here. So Daniel Webster is our main north-south corridor within town. The F.E. Everett, it parallels the F.E. Everett basically. And it would be a candidate for any future bus. To the north and to the south, at both ends of town, there are large residential developments going in. So I can foresee in the future that we're going to need some type of services, transport services coming through. We also have the train and the tracks running parallel with the Merrimack River all the way up through. So there's a lot of potential in there. The economic and tourism benefit, it'll connect the residences with the downtown commercial, residences with the restaurants and health services. The connection will be made between the schools and churches and town facilities. And it will also draw the tourists, which we know through the COVID that it absolutely brought people into our trail system and parks. We had a real problem last year because it was just overwhelming. So they do come, and we have an extensive trail system. This gives you an idea of all of the areas. I mean, it's all well developed in this area. This is our town center. So we've got retail establishments even to the north. Here's our Merrimack Youth Association with the Twin Bridge and the ball fields, Kids Cove. We've got the O'Leary Adult Center, the church, libraries, police station, the schools. I didn't even talk about the schools, but we've got the elementary schools, and this whole massive down here is the high school. One of the projects that the town council has requested that I start, which I did last year, I started working on the sidewalk connecting Woodbury Street from the high school all the way down to Daniel Webster. This had been a previous TAP grant. They don't want to wait anymore, so we didn't know that this TAP grant was coming, so we already started the work on this really important connection. We're hopefully finishing up our Sauhegan Trail. Here's our Watson Park. So we've got a lot going on in this area, and we'll make that connection for all of the new residences that are going to be down to the south.
But Dawn, I'm going to have to ask you to tie it up because there are people that need to leave at some point.
Okay,
we're at over 20 minutes at this point.
This is the trail system to the west of the F.E. Everett and our new trail there. And here's the Watson Park. And of course, I'm done. Back at you.
Thanks, Dawn. Next up is Nashua. Julie, do you want me to open up the file you sent me, or do you want to do it from your end? I think I have my answer.
I got it. Thanks. So you all can see that, correct? And you're not seeing presenter view? All right, perfect.
Yep.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to try to go really quickly. We have 1 minute to get through the next 3 presentations. So let's just get going. I think you guys all know who I am, and I thank you for your time today. Our project in the city of Nashua proposes to build a multi-use trail in the heart of our downtown area between the Nashua River and East Hollis Street. Over the last 30 years, the city's worked to expand and improve its bicycle and pedestrian network, especially in the downtown area where we have dense housing and a high percentage of residents without access to a vehicle, mixed in with a lot of commercial and service sector businesses. Bicycle use in particular has increased steadily over the last decade, and as such, all of the Nashua transit system buses are fitted with bike racks. The city made a major investment in its Main Street sidewalks a number of years ago and is striping bike lanes on newly paved roads where feasible. The city will soon be moving into the design phase of a CMAQ project to construct the Heritage Rail Trail East, and the Nashua River Walk project is actively in the design phase. If awarded, TAP funding for this project will be used to construct a vital link between these two non-motorized networks that provide access to the city's 325-acre Mine Falls Park and its miles of paved and natural trails, as well as to other destinations in and around downtown Nashua. So our project proposed is this in the circle here, the Nashua River Walk to the north, the Heritage Rail Trail to the south. This will connect them. Last year, the NRPC completed a bike ped study that included robust public outreach. Input from those efforts clearly identified the need to improve conditions and identified downtown and the Main Street area as particularly problematic. It highlighted that we have deterrents to walking and biking that include a lack of separated facilities, and there was absolutely overwhelming consensus that the city needs to focus on connecting its trails. As mentioned previously, this project is located in the heart of downtown Nashua. There's a lot of high density housing that will benefit from this project, including the two Sullivan Terrace senior housing properties with a total of 196 units, and the new Marshall Street apartments with 152 units. And these properties do have affordable housing. Additionally, 168 units have been approved on Temple Street and 80 units approved for the old Henry Hanger building on East Hollis Street. The connection will also provide improved access to services, including City Hall, the Transit Center, the Post Office, the Courthouse, the Public Library, and the Senior Center. And finally, we have major employers in the area that will also benefit from the project, including BAE and Southern New Hampshire Medical Center. In addition to the Riverwalk and Heritage Rail Trail, this project builds upon other planned projects, including the sidewalk and bike lane tap project on Locke and Whitney Street, and the CMAQ project to enhance safety, improve traffic flow, and install bike lanes around Railroad Square. And for those living north of the Nashua River, it will be much easier and safer to walk or bike to the future commuter rail station on Crown Street, just down over here. Overall, there will be so many destinations that you can safely access without using a car, and some of them I've highlighted on the map here. We also have Nashua North over just north of the ball fields on the west side of the Turnpike. So moving on from project location to project scope, we propose to improve an existing rail width trail that begins or will pick up from the Nashua River Walk near the pedestrian bridge over the Nashua River. The city signed a lease with B&M Railroad in 1996 for the use, construction, and maintenance of the pedestrian bridge and the trail to Temple Street, so we don't need to acquire right of way from a rail company or negotiate an agreement for this part of the project. The project will also enhance the visibility and safety of the crossing of Temple Street over to Spruce Street. On Spruce Street, where we have ample right-of-way, we'll replace the existing sidewalk on the east side of the road with a multi-use path. The east side of the road is all commercial with fewer curb cuts than the west side, which is primarily, or actually it is all residential. Businesses on the east side will include a bingo hall and a church. The project will terminate at the Heritage Rail Trail East, which runs along Howard Street. And I want to note that the Heritage Rail Trail project is going to install a RRFB, a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at the Spruce Street crossing. Sorry. trying to read fast. Zooming in a little on the specific segments of this project, this is a view of the existing railway trail leading from Temple Street to the pedestrian bridge. There are drainage issues with which this project will fix. The trail will be widened and resurfaced. Lighting will be upgraded and overgrown brush will be cleared. At the Temple Street crossing, we anticipate a hawk system will be recommended in the engineering study and have budgeted accordingly. At the very least, an RFB will be installed. We'll also bring the crossing into compliance with ADA standards. On Spruce Street, we propose to construct a 10-foot wide paved multi-use path with landscape buffers. Impediments would be removed, such as the mailbox, and traffic would be calmed on this cut-through street by narrowing travel lanes, adding a landscape buffer between the travel lane and the new multi-use path, and constructing bump outs at the Temple Street and Howard Street intersections. We really feel this project will improve safety for non-motorized users who want to navigate around downtown safely on routes that are separated from vehicular traffic. Both Temple Street and Spruce Street currently have a C stress level due to their function as major collectors and the speed at which traffic generally travels, often exceeding the posted 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. Spruce Street acts as a cut-through for people trying to get off the frequently congested East Hollis Street, further contributing to a high level of traffic stress for those on bikes or on foot. Traffic volumes on both urban streets are fairly high, with DOT records showing pre-COVID 2019 annual average daily traffic volumes of about 4,600 on Temple and 3,800 on Spruce. There is a crosswalk where the existing trail crosses Temple Street, but it doesn't have a pedestrian beacon and it's not very visible. The anticipated stress level for the project area will be an A after the improvements are completed, as the improved trail is off-road and the multi-use path on Spruce Street will be separated from traffic by a landscape buffer. The visibility and the safety of the crossing at Temple Street will be greatly enhanced with the installation of either a hawk beacon or an RRFB to slow down and control the traffic. The project is located along a Nashua transit route, so people will be able to bike or walk more safely to and from their stops. Our estimate for the project comes out to 1.25 million, and that includes the hawk system, which is about 160,000 for the crossing. And we also added inflation to account for an anticipated 2025 construction year. And while we anticipate this project will be constructed on the leased B&M land and within city-owned right-of-way, the engineering study may show a need for permanent easements to accommodate the street crossings or temporary easements during construction. So right-of-way funds have been estimated accordingly. This map shows the land uses within a half mile of the connector. And as I previously mentioned, it's a lot of commercial, which is in the pink, and residential, which are in the more yellow and orange tones, with multifamily being in the brown tones. And we also have access to many religious institutions and services. There are about 11,200 people, residents, and 5,100 households in the census tracts adjacent to the project and connecting trail systems. And the census is on the map data for 2018, the most recent year available, shows 11,600 jobs in the 3 census tracts. So this project really is in the heart of a residential commercial area. The area has high percentages of underrepresented individuals, high rates of poverty, and a high percentage of adults with health issues who would really benefit from a safe, free place to exercise outside of a gym. There are a lot of renters in the area, like over 75% of the households are rented. And many of the properties have very limited parking. So between that and the high poverty rates, it's no wonder that vehicle ownership rates are really low in these neighborhoods. The project is strongly supported by the draft mobility goals of the city's master plan, which is currently being updated through an effort known as Imagine Nashua. These goals were developed based on input heard during several public meetings and 2 online surveys. The city strives to have a well-connected multimodal system that helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions and promotes active transportation. It wants to have complete streets that provide safe options for bicyclists and pedestrians. And our goals in this plan, which we hope to put into effect in July of this year, really show that commitment. The project's also consistent with the goals of the regional ped and bike plan by accommodating bicycles and pedestrians, supporting local networks, enhancing conditions for non-motorists, yada, 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 all up there. It's also supported by the mayor, BAE, one of the city's largest, if not largest employer, and the Nashua Senior Center, which is located within the project area. And then with respect to feasibility, The city has a 30+ year history of investing pretty significantly in its bike and ped infrastructure with a focus on the downtown in the more recent years. We have a commitment from the mayor to provide 20% match using our general fund, and we have very strong cash reserves to support the project through the reimbursement process. We also have the expertise and experience to successfully manage an LPA project with several staff members holding LPA certifications. And we have experience in maintaining these types of facilities, including winter maintenance. We have the equipment and the plows to be able to maintain these year round. And with that, I thank you, and we'll release you from PowerPoint.
Okay, any questions for Julie? Good job, Julie.
Thank you.
Julie, this is Mark. I have just one question as far as the construction. You're going to reconstruct the Spruce Street Road so that the crown would be in the center again. I'm just concerned about if you're traveling down a narrow lane and the crown is in the lane, it might tend to make people drift into the curb.
Yeah, I didn't include that slide from the concept plan, but there are plans to account for that. I'm not the engineer on the job, and I think Pete Koami's here with us today and can speak to that if you like. Pete? Oh, he might have had to. Oh, thanks, Pete.
Yeah, that's correct. We're going to relocate the crown of the road.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Julie. All right. So next up is Pelham. Jeff, do you want me to open it from here, or are you going to open it from where you're at?
Hi, Matt. I'm going to give this a shot. Being
Okay.
a Luddite, I don't know how it's going to work out, but let's see. Share screen. And you guys see this? Matt, can you see?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
we see that, Jeff.
Perfect. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, great. So I just want to provide in this, and I'll try to do this very quickly, some nuance to help create some context for this application. We have, let's see if it's going to go here. Having some trouble forwarding the screen. Let me see if I can. Tell you what, Matt, why don't you drive?
All right. Jeff, I'm going to have to share my screen and do it.
Let me see if I can try this again.
Yeah, just go from there, perhaps.
All right, so you all can see this.
Yep.
Great. Let me go back to the slideshow here. We may just look at it in this forum, parting the rest of it. So basically, I want to provide some context here. Pelham has a historic bridge called the Abbott Bridge that is underlying kind of everything we're talking about here. This bridge, and bear in mind this view, if you would. This bridge, I'm going to spare you reading all this, but it's a historic bridge, the last or the oldest remaining, non-pointed stone arch bridge in the state. It was restored in 1998. It is very narrow, perilous. It's just, you can barely fit two cars across it going different directions, much less any pedestrian situation. This bridge is very much part of our community's character. It is just, for example, on our webpage as the main background feature. As part of this overview, Pelham it's a commercial district down here, and that's the heart of it, along Route 38, is separated by Beaver Brook from our town center and our schools, et cetera, and a lot of the residents of Pelham. This is important to understand because we have just recently completed a bridge down here on Willow that has sidewalks on the bridge. The sidewalks, however, have not yet extended on either approach to that bridge to connecting this area of town center with Route 38 in our commercial district. To the north, this bridge, the Main Street Bridge, is being undertaken by NHDOT now in terms of design, and it will have a sidewalk on it, but it would bring people to an area of Route 38, very distant and frankly dark and a little bit treacherous to this vital commercial district here. So the path that students and pedestrians take, because it's the shortest path from, again, our schools, town hall, we have our library here, lots of like skating rink and sports facilities back behind town hall. They take this path, which puts those pedestrians on that old historic bridge. Pretty treacherous stuff. And the reason that this connection is the one we're pushing in this TAP grant application is we have drugstores here. We have doctor's offices, our commercial district, Maine Plaza in town, grocery shopping, restaurants. It's also got the Pelham Chunky's Cinema and Pub, the trampoline park, Altitude, and there are safe ways without being out on Route 38 to access Tractor Supply and other businesses along this route. So that's why we're really pushing this connection. Slide here. Here's the locus or the map that we submitted with our application. So this green is existing sidewalk. This took you down to the schools we talked about a minute ago, but it ends here. We're proposing to extend the sidewalk along this area, then to have essentially a stone dust path, if you will, from that sidewalk to the pedestrian bridge, back to the sidewalk, and then down across Route 38, crossing wherever the DOT prefers, which would be either on this side of the intersection or crossing the street. So that's it in a nutshell. The green is the existing sidewalk, the pink is proposed, the orange is the walking path and proposed pedestrian bridge. Here's a little bit of detail to help fill in some more nuance. Here is that proposed sidewalk expansion coming down to the bridge. What's relevant here to describe is a current state project to construct, we're still in the permitting process, but a flood relief channel right here as I'm moving on the cursor. Here is the old bridge. The problem is that it acts, beautiful as it is, those double arches act as a dam. There's no freeboard in any kind of flood situation. It winds up acting as a dam and causing water to back up and overtop the road. As the result of the Mother's Day flood, which we all remember, we did in-depth flood studies that showed we need to reconstruct our bridges, not from the north, from upstream down, but downstream up. And that's why this flood relief structure is currently being planned and will be constructed. What we want to do with a TAP grant is, not build this and then come back at some point in the future and build this. We'd like to get in there and disturb things one time and accomplish both projects if we're able to. So that's the other, I was telling you to remember that view of the bridge. It was taken from this bank. And we want to not crowd the old historic bridge, provide not only safe pedestrian access over the brook, but a place to really enjoy and observe this old structure. Because again, there are not many of them left. This is the oldest one. And we wouldn't want to crowd it from a perspective of actually interfering with this planned infrastructure, but also giving it breathing room and staying a reasonable distance away. Here's an example of the type of bridge we're talking about. Approximately 125-foot span would be a steel prefab bridge with either wood or composite planking. Here's another view. It would probably be a little bit wider than this because we would need to get our big snow blower, ride-on device down there to keep it clear during the winter time. Very quickly, the support, we have enthusiastic and unanimous support from the Board of Selectmen, who are committed to put the entire proposed cost of $1,122,400 on the ballot for 2022, should we be lucky enough to be selected for the TAP grant. We also have a letter of support from the school district, who's very excited about keeping their students safer, as they try to get from, again, town center, town hall, and those sports facilities across the brook down to the shopping district, which they will do things as crazy as fishing off this narrow bridge. But if you ever drove across that bridge with a pedestrian or bicyclist on it, you would your blood would run cold. That is really it for the slides. I'm hesitant to go through all the criteria. I'll just touch on it very quickly. Again, the selectmen are very much dedicated to putting a warrant on the ballot for the entire cost, with the understanding it would be at 80% federal and 20% town match. We have that letter of commitment in addition to one from the school district. We don't believe there are any historic, cultural, environmental concerns in that area, largely because of the survey work that's been undertaken for the flood relief structure. Of course, surprises can come up, and we would resolve those in the process of permitting the project. Stress analysis right now is an E. It is not suitable for pedestrians, bicycles, or pedestrians. We anticipate post-project it would be elevated to a level B. Certainly, you still have to have a basic knowledge of traffic skills. We wouldn't want children, crossing any road without that basic knowledge. It clearly improves our safety situation in the town, especially since such risks are being currently taken. I don't have any specific accident data of pedestrian injuries or conflicts along this corridor, but it is clearly a significant safety concern. And it does, in terms of connectivity, provide that direct access to the shopping district from our town center, which is wanting. That's about it. Again, I tried to keep this pretty short. If there are any questions anyone has, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Jeff, this is Mark. I was wondering how you were going to get people across 38.
We are proposing, let me go back to this. So we're proposing, there's curvature, a kind of a strange sweeping kind of connection with Bridge Street, Route 38. So I'm anticipating that we would likely have a crosswalk right there once people get around this, this bridge, a pedestrian bridge, and come back up to the sidewalk. We'd probably cross them there with some sort of a flashing light, because that would lend itself a little bit better to crossing Bridge Street. Still, we have another crosswalk here that would get them into the plaza that we're trying to connect people with. This could work, but again, I wanted to be sure that the DOT had a couple of options, because they like these connections and crosswalks to meet their standards, and it's a little premature for us right now to know which avenue they would prefer.
Thank you.
Sure. And I would throw in that although I'll be retiring at the end of May, my planner, who will be interim planning director, and I'm hopeful, and I think it's very likely will ultimately become planning director, is also LPA certified. So that we got that base covered, as well as some more members of our selectmen, and rather not selectmen, but other members of our community who are full-time employees of the town are going to be seeking LPA certification as well.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions for Jeff?
Thank you.
So I know we've gone over, and I apologize for that. Hindsight's 2020. We have one more presentation. I hope people can hang in. And that would be Wilton. So Jennifer, are you going to run it from your end, or you want me to open it?
I'll give it a shot on this end. Everybody see the screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this is a little different from what you've heard so far. Wilton, as you know, is a small rural town with a rather interesting little downtown area that we are looking to completely revitalize. And this particular project, I never thought, being from New York, I would actually be trying to sell somebody a bridge, but that's what I'm here to do. You will see from my background that this project and an awful lot of what we are doing in Wilton is actually a real combination between both economic development and conservation, two hats that I actually wear. So the bridge that is the focus of the TAP grant, the first one that the town has ever done, is actually a keystone piece of architecture. It connects to what we like to call urban trails on the western part of our town, and I'm going to take you through that in a moment. So this is, think of it as the lockstone in an old stone bridge, if you will, the thing that sort of pulls things together. We have a master plan that's been in place now from GPI architectural firm that was funded by a warrant article previously. And that particular area that we're looking at right now for the bridge is right here. You can see that on my screen. It is going to connect the two trails on either side of Stony Brook. This is actually the Sauhegan that comes in, Stony Brook runs into it, and then it flows through town. So we are sort of blessed to have two protected rivers in our town, but also we have a couple of highways. So just to give you an orientation of what we're looking at here, 31, which is a state highway, comes in from the west. 101 actually comes in and bypasses our little downtown area, which has indeed been the focus of a number of pedestrian and bicycle accidents. So this is the area that we're looking at for the entire Riverwalk plan, the bridge being the lock node in that. So let me just, rather than taking you through the entire application, which you already have, let me just give you an idea of how to visualize what we're looking at in terms of the safety issues. This is 31 coming in this way that I just talked about. This is an auto bridge right now, which comes in, and if you're coming to 101, you're going to go out the other side of town. The Wilton Falls building is the site of a future restaurant, and we have a number of shops and businesses in there today. You're standing right now, if you're right here on Burns Hill Road, our high school is up this hill, not too very far. And kids right now walk down this sidewalk, bicycles, walking, whatever, running. And then they play chicken in this particular intersection, which has only yield signs at the time. And then they try to get across the other side of this road and down the only sidewalk across the auto bridge, basically dodging huge gravel trucks that use only this bridge to get to 101 that come out of a lot of our quarries here in Wilton. So it can be very noisy, and they rumble across this bridge and they mix it up with a bunch of other people that are trying to walk into this area. Main Street is back here down the other side, on the other side of the river. So what we're talking about is if we now, so I'm going to go back to, if what we want is kids to be able to, and everyone, to walk down this sidewalk, stay on this sidewalk, which goes by our police station over here, take a left into what now is the new Riverwalk Phase 1, and then be able to get down this sidewalk, they'd come down this way, and then they'd be able to cross the bridge. This side of the river is right now under construction and will be done May 1st. It is the, here's a conceptual of the bridge that goes across. This was granted as an easement by TDS, and it was a funded project by the AARP Community Challenge grant that we got last year. So our easement area for that trail is right here. And that bridge would come right across from the parking lot to here and then follow down, which now also activates parking here, parking on the other side at our municipal parking area, and brings people now onto the other side of town and into the communities on that side of town by completely avoiding that intersection. Now, I will say the intersection is absolutely on the 10-year plan for DOT. It is looking now, I think, at some stop signs, but it is not accommodating pedestrians in that plan. It's just making it safer for cars and slowing down that traffic. So if I look at the things you're considering right now, in terms of scoping this project, what we've done to be able to triangulate a number of estimates on what that bridge will cost, We've taken the cost estimates from GPI Landscape Architects. We've taken the Contech Engineered Solutions, which is specifically the bridge itself. And New Hampshire DOT also has this project rated 4th on the 10-year plan, but we were absolutely encouraged to apply for TAP. And we've taken those estimates and come up with the $750,000 that we believe it will cost. The bridge itself is not that expensive. We have in this presentation, the appendix, I have the specs on the bridge. We're talking about a steel bridge with a wooden flooring. And what is really interesting for us is what's going to happen with the engineering on either side of a protected river. So we have town-owned land. We don't need additional easements, but this will require both shoreland as well as stormwater and wetland permitting because it's a protected river. We have already done a number of those things for the two sides, so we kind of know where we are with that. DES is aware of this plan. They love the Riverwalk project in its entirety. So this bridge, we will not know what we're getting into on either side of the approaches, which is where all the cost is really going to be, until we have that engineering, soil testing, et cetera. We know what we've got on one side because the Army Corps of Engineers has actually put in a retaining wall on the side that already has a parking lot. What we don't know is what the bank on the other side is going to look like. And it is about 2 feet lower than the one on the opposite shore. So it's the approaches are where the engineering and the architecture and the expense is actually going to occur. Our funding schedule right now and strategy for this thing is assuming award notification in June, we hope. And then we would then start looking at building a bridge campaign. Now, Wilton likes to do things a little differently. We only have 3,800 people, about 1,000 of them live downtown. This project has already been through a number of warrant article awards, so people are very aware of the project. The bridge itself is something that we really want to use as almost an icon of hope for the future revitalization of this town and what we can actually do with that entire walkable downtown, which today has lots of fragmented, parking lots and lots of sidewalks that end arbitrarily. What we're trying to do is create that walkable connection all through the town that then also starts to feed a lot of the economic viability, the theater, a lot of the anchor attractions in town. What we really want to do is be able to socialize the whole notion of the bridge thing. And we've got a new nonprofit, which is entirely dedicated to investing in the town. It's the Wilton Alliance. I am chairing that particular nonprofit. It's a 501(c)(3). And we have just tasked that organization with actually raising about 100,000, if more if possible. So we don't necessarily have to go full taxation on a warrant article. The warrant article has already been authored. It is drafted. The Wilton Alliance, just so you know, it was incorporated just recently in March. This would be the first project that the board of directors would take on. They enthusiastically decided to support that. If there is a shortfall in that private donation funding, there's a lot of money in Wilton, believe it or not. Then we would actually take up that shortfall with taxation on a warrant article, as is typically done. Just quick, we have lots of goals associated with the Riverwalk itself. Let me just hone in on the ones that are specific to the bridge. As I said, it's filling some gaps in what is now a pedestrian network. It will create a loop as opposed to trails that go nowhere. And it's obviously providing an alternative route that's going to connect some of these urban pathways and hopefully eliminate those pedestrian accidents. Yes, it is also accommodating bicycles and other modes of mobility transportation. So we have an aging town, obviously, as is very typical in these small rural towns in New Hampshire. We have a lot of people who just simply will not go downtown and walk because they can't easily find their way around the traffic. We also want that alternative route from schools. Now, this was part of the Safe Routes to Schools program that became part of TAP. So that project is teed up and that intersection will be addressed, but not for pedestrians. We also want to increase all the connections that we can conceivably have between the different parts of downtown and improve that safety of walking and crossing downtown streets. Right now, you kind of have to walk around a big wide square before you can get yourself across a crosswalk and down an opposite sidewalk. So we're looking at all of those things, but connecting the two sides of town, one that is sort of bisected by a state highway, and following the contiguous route of the rivers so that we are no longer turning our back on the rivers that actually made this town what it is today. We obviously want to also attract and encourage increased foot traffic, then therefore feeds and builds customer bases for our businesses and for dining, entertainment, and downtown, to reduce some of those vacancy rates and the turnover of some of those Main Street businesses. Because now 101 obviously carries auto traffic away from our downtown, it also carries traffic away. And we still have, I think there's something like 3,500 cars that are going over that auto bridge along with trucks. And then we've got about 5,000 cars that traverse our Main Street downtown every day. And it's like a one-sided Main Street. The other thing this bridge does, which is great, is to activate the municipal parking area that is in that lot I showed you earlier. That's going to alleviate probably about 10% of the current parking requirements on Main Street. It's parking on one side, angular parking. People back out into traffic on that Main Street. Everyone's very polite. However, it is not a good place for pedestrians to be walking around. Massive support for this project. A small town can really coalesce around an idea or a vision, and that has been the case for this particular project. It is in our master plan. The whole Riverwalk and connectivity goals are incorporated in the current transportation chapter. And then a couple of interesting stats. When we did workshops, which we do constantly with our residents in the economic development side of the things, about 3/4 of the residents want to expand what is now an existing sort of transportation network, if you will. We don't have buses and Uber and Lyft coming to Wilton. But they especially want bike and pedestrian amenities. And another 78% of them rated pedestrian trails as very or somewhat important in the survey work that we did. As I mentioned, the bridge is ranked number 4 in DOT's 10-year plan. NRPC actually has done a number of studies for us. One of them was an economic feasibility impact study about the Riverwalk itself. That was back in March of 2018. We did a Plan New Hampshire community design charrette, which had about 250 residents out of the 3,800. That's pretty good. That's more than town meeting. Came in July, and we had a whole, that was what actually started to trip us into the whole notion of the Riverwalk, to be able to create that green space, greenway, gathering places, and alternative modes of transportation and more walkability in downtown. As I said, 1,000 people live within walking distance of downtown, and yet they drive. So what we're trying to do in the longer range plan is design the town and that very small downtown for people, not for cars. You design for cars, you get cars. You design for people, you get people. So we also have, this project is teed up as economic development's high priority project, along with a number of others that are phasing in the Riverwalk project. And they have been multiple approved warrants already over the last number of years for the various implementation phases of this master plan. And overall, they actually even funded the, excuse me, the design of the entire project. We have unanimous Board of Selectmen votes in favor of supporting this application. We also have letters of support from our town treasurer, a number of merchants downtown that are waiting for this to happen, the community center, our Main Street Association, the Conservation Commission, actually, and the Economic Development team. Actually, this entire project is a joint venture from its very inception between the Conservation Commission and Economic Development, which makes it kind of interesting. And finally, I need to tell you that we have a bit of a mascot associated with this entire downtown plan. The great blue heron of Stony Brook can be spotted regularly fishing in that particular part of the river right underneath the dam. And she actually did a flyby very, very low over a crowd of about 250 people when we opened phase 1 of the implementation. We take that as a very good sign. And you might be interested to know, and this is really a lot of the personality of Wilton and what we're all about as a town. According to North American Native tradition, the blue heron brings messages of self-determination and self-reliance. Maybe that's why we've never applied for TAP. They represent an ability to progress and evolve. We're certainly doing that. And they have the innate wisdom of being able to maneuver through life and co-create their own circumstances. So call it Yankee ingenuity, call it a small town that doesn't have a tagline because there are no words to describe people in Wilton, a very eclectic town with private schools and public schools and homeschooled kids and a really interesting intellectual community of a bunch of characters. So I hope that, I know this looks like another infrastructure project to all of you. For us, it's a symbol of hope. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Excellent. Any questions for Jennifer and the Wilton Bridge project?
Jennifer, this is Mark.
Hi, Mark.
My only question is, does the Board of Selectmen understand they have to get
Yeah.
fund the entire 750,000?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jennifer or any of the presentations? So I know we went over. Sometimes that happens. My apologies. And but thank you for hanging in there. And Greg, I guess I'd hand it back to you for adjournment. And can I ask Tad and Mark and Lincoln just to hang in for a minute afterwards, if you have time?
10-4.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, what about the scoring?
Right, so I, so there's a link to the scoring, and I'm going to ask that I had originally said, it's in the chat box, and I originally had said to do that scoring by the end of business today, but I thought I'd extend that till tomorrow morning, say by noon tomorrow, if anybody needs to, you know, is out of time and has to move to another meeting or some such thing. All right, does that make sense? And if there are any issues with that link, I do have a backup plan. So if any of you that are voting you know, just give me a jingle or email me, and we'll fix that. All right. And the other thing, Greg, was that we, you know, it's the TTAC rankings were not going to be announced today. It was, you know, it was they're anonymous.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Just want to make sure that everybody understood the voting procedure. Okay, so I'll just note that all the projects that have been submitted are also added to our MTP through the next update that we routinely do with the STIP amendments. So, you know, even those, for those who do not get funded, you can take solace that it is part of our overall plan and try again, either through TAP or through the 10-year plan submissions, which will come around again in the less than 2 years. Okay, so that brings us to our updates. I know we've lost a couple of our agencies. Are there any other municipal updates that people would like to inform us about today? If not, I'll move on to DES. Tim, anything you have?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. 3 real quick ones. We still have an open solicitation round for our Stay Clean Diesel program. That's our grant program funded through the Diesel Emission Reduction Act from EPA. The deadline for the proposals is April 19th. If you're looking for information on the program, you can go to the our DES website or get in touch with me. Secondly, just to give you a brief example of some of the successful projects that we're currently funding through the State Clean Diesel Program. At the April 7th Governor and Council meeting, there were 2 DERA projects approved. One was with the city of Berlin for replacement of a heavy truck and a snow blower, and the town of Barnstead also received a grant to replace one of their heavy vehicles. One final item at a Governor and Council meeting on the 24th of March, they approved a grant agreement with Revision Energy of Portland, Maine, and that is to construct and operate some level 2 electric vehicle chargers at a state-owned piece of property in downtown Concord. And that's a Volkswagen funded project. So those are the 3 announcements. Thanks, Greg.
Okay, thank you. So I know we did go long today. We had anticipated that would be the plan, but the good news is we're not planning to meet in May. So we would see you back again in June. So I'm sure I'll have no problem getting a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, so hearing no objection, I declare us to be adjourned. Thank you all.